Rodeo Stacker King, part of the King's Collection. Order now on the BK app for $0 delivery. Only at Burger King.
Back here with Chris Carter, we're going viral. Tom Brady and the Patriots preparing to host the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. One of Brady's former teammates experiencing a bit of FOMO with Antonio Brown posting a picture of himself and Brady on Instagram with the caption, "Miss you, big bro." Let me just say, Antonio Brown seems so desperate lately. In the last 3 weeks, it is, "Please let me come back and play. I'd be so great to play." Lyrics to a song about, "Here's me, here's me and Tom Brady." It just reeks of desperation.
You're absolutely correct, but that wasn't my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway is Antonio Brown might have set the land speed record for shortest time with a person before referring to them as big bro. Like, I mean, he was around Brady like 8 days, and he's like, "What, big bro?" I mean, I understand we throw big bro and low bro around, not so judiciously, but I mean, maybe a month of time together before the familial relationship, like that was fast even by AB standards.
No, it's fast by AB standards, but Jenna, I'm just surprised by the pivot from Antonio Brown. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about how he didn't need the NFL.
I don't need the NFL. Don't even ask me to come back
with the Patriots.
I can't.
Stop.
No, see, this is what you have to expect is the pivot, because that's exactly what you've got from AB. He's been all over the map. I think what is a very interesting question is, if you're the Patriots, would you consider? We've talked a lot about the
Brady and Belichick would, but I think so too.
Head case.
I know
just
he
in
is,
his
but
tweets, he's a head case.
You can't talk bad about the owner and then expect him to do
And by the way, I don't know that he needs the NFL or even misses football as much as the attention.
Absolutely.
My man's doing live stream cutting potatoes during NFL Sunday. Check AB's Instagram or Twitter. Any NFL Sunday, right when the games get on, he does something because he's used to people looking at him.
So fine. All right, on to Thursday Night Football. Last night, the Bears handed Dallas their third straight loss. They've now lost 7 of their last 10 games. And, of course, questions were swirling about Jason Garrett's status with the team. After the game, Jerry Jones said he won't make a coaching change this week. Nick, Jerry making a mistake sticking with Jason Garrett here?
Of course. I would just like to hear the argument as to why he wouldn't be fired today. I understood I said that he deserved to be fired after the Patriot game, but I knew you couldn't because you only had 4 days, because it was Sunday to Thursday. Then the way they lost to Buffalo, I thought, okay, now you have a full week, you move on, but they didn't. Now you have 10 days. Like, now you have a little mini bye to get your house in order. And because of what Philly is doing, you do still control. You can even lose next week and control your own destiny. All they got to do is beat Philly and one of the other 2 games, either the Rams or Washington, and they're a lock. Depending on what Philly does, they might just have to beat Philly. Hell, depending on what Philly does, they might not have to win again, and they could still win the division if Philly goes winless the rest of the way, aside from the game against Dallas. You are in position where you can still host a home playoff game. You are not in position to be any threat in the playoffs as presently constituted. They're not going to do something like bring in AB. They're not going to have all of a sudden, something where the facts change on the ground players-wise. So why wouldn't you, even if it's a 2% chance, give yourself a chance to shake up the dynamic by changing the head coach when clearly whatever buttons Jason Garrett is pressing are not working, because you lost this Thursday the exact same way you lost last Thursday.
Well, here's my question to you. I mean, if you fire Jason Garrett, do you think that you have a better chance of being able to accomplish your goal of hosting a home playoff game with Cris Carter as your interim head coach, or Rod Marinelli, or Kellen Moore?
I guess my answer would be that's not your goal. Your goal is not to host a home playoff game. Your goal is to go on a playoff run. Yeah. And right now you're at 0%. So anything, right now the Cowboys to me, because I've watched them play.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't think that a change with the coach is going to affect how these guys are going out there and playing. I don't think that they're all of a sudden going to execute better, because your interim head coach is going to be somebody that's on that staff. You're not bringing somebody outside of the organization. So again, if Jason Garrett isn't the guy to hold these guys accountable, to get them to play up to their potential, then who else on that Dallas Cowboys staff is going to be able to do that?
And Kenny, didn't you go through this with the Giants when Tom Coughlin was just always seemingly on the hot seat and you guys guys stuck with him through the rest of the season?
We did stick through him for the rest of the season. We did a month of losing in 2011, and then we were able to get hot at the end. We won 2 straight, and we rode that onto a Super Bowl run. But I don't necessarily see that happening with this Dallas Cowboys team, just because I don't know that the leadership is in place with this Dallas Cowboys team to keep everybody together amidst so much adversity and so much outside noise. I look at this situation right now, and I know that Jason Garrett is going to get the brunt of the blame, but also when I look at the players in the locker room, who's going to be the guy to stand up and hold his teammates accountable? Who's going to be the guy that goes to Brett Maher and say, hey, you can't rest easy and put your head on a pillow and feel good about what you did last night? The missed field goal, which set us back and set up a score for the Bears before the half. Kicking the ball out of bounds on the kickoff to start the fourth quarter to give them a short field, which they scored a touchdown. Like, at some point, these mistakes that we're seeing from the Cowboys are inexcusable. And it's the players out there that have to go out there and perform better. I don't know that there's a coach on that staff other than Jason Garrett that's going to be able to create that kind of result. I just don't see it.
See, I was trying to rack my brain of saying, what would I do if I was Jason Garrett? What would the message be? And that's actually why I yelled over here during the break saying, hey, Dusty, has a team ever lost 3 in a row and made a Super Bowl? And you were like, we lost 4 and won a Super Bowl. If I'm Jason Garrett, I am pulling that example at tomorrow's meeting or today's meeting. I'm saying, look, this is not the end of the world. Teams have bounced back from adversity before. This is the cauldron that's the NFL, and it's never been hotter than it is in 2019 with the media scrutiny, social media. Everybody's got a platform. Everybody's going to call for a coach to be fired. You've got to come up with some message that's going to resonate, how you can bounce back. The question I would have as far as who's got to step up, where's Dak? Where's Zeke? Where's Witten? Where's Michael Bennett, a player who's played on Super Bowls before? Like, somebody in that room has to step up. And maybe it's a team meeting where they hash it out. You know, the players-only meeting, they have one of those, which I usually think is a sign of desperation. If they do that, it's never a good thing. But I would almost guarantee that you hear a players-only meeting at this point. Yeah. I don't think it does. I'm with you, Ken. I don't think there's an advantage to firing Jason Garrett now. I don't know if that's the spark that ignites this team moving forward. So why not see if he can at least, because the game plans have been pretty solid. They have worked at times. For whatever reason, they are just not performing in the clutch. And then after the season, you part ways and you say, thanks for everything. Bye-bye.
But we do know that keeping the status quo is going to result in them getting worked over in their first playoff game. We know it. I do not care if they are playing. They could be playing, depending on how it falls, Green Bay, Minnesota, San Francisco, or Seattle. Any of those top teams except for New Orleans, because New Orleans guaranteed to win their division. Any of those teams would go to Dallas licking their chops. You know why?
I disagree. I think those teams would be kind of nervous to play the Cowboys because they do have top-tier talent. That's the whole question we've been asking. Is this a good football team? No, they're not good, but they are talented. And that would scare me a little bit. If I'm the team that's favored and have to go into their place and beat them, I think that would be a team teams would not want to face.
To me, there is no risk. Everyone agrees Jason Garrett's not the head coach next year, right?
Agreed.
Everyone agrees the Cowboys, as presently constituted, are drawing essentially dead to make the Super Bowl, right? And that was the stated goal at the beginning of the year. You paid Zeke. You brought everyone back. You didn't give Garrett his contract extension because you want to see if you could get to the next level. So roll the dice. And the reason I think Kris Richard or even Rod Marinelli, even though his one time as a head coach was an utter failure, I understand that, those guys are not just from the Cowboys Jason Garrett incubator. Kris Richard learned under Pete Carroll. Rod Marinelli ran his own staff. Maybe there is an element of those guys are sitting in these team meetings saying, this is not what I would be saying, these guys, but I got to be a good soldier. I got to follow my head coach. And they would have a different message. Again, I'm talking about a 1 in 50 shot. I get it. But it's better than a 0 in a million shot, which is where I view the Cowboys to be, because they have had 6 chances to beat a good team. They're 0 for 6. They've had 5 chances to win a close game. They're 0 for 5. All of the indicators of a poorly coached team, the Cowboys are checking those boxes.
What do you think the players want in that locker room? You think the players want to stick it out with Jason Garrett? Did you want to stick it out with Tom Coughlin? I'm sure you heard the outside noise.
Well, it was a different situation just because you have seen Tom Coughlin have success at the highest levels. I think that's the delineation that you can make between that situation.
That coach and quarterback had won a Super Bowl.
They won a Super Bowl before.
Okay, so what do you
haven't
think the
seen Jason Garrett win at the highest level, so I don't know that the players necessarily trust Jason Garrett to put them in situations where they can have success. But to Nick's point about Kris Richard and Rod Marinelli, even though they can't contradict what the head coach is saying, both of those individuals can talk to those players. They can try to set the agenda. They can try to get those guys to go out there and play better, but they haven't up until this point. So, I mean, I have to hold those guys on the staff accountable for the performance, too. This just ain't all on Jason Garrett, and I don't know that we've ever seen an interim head coach take a team to the playoffs. No. So I don't understand why you would make the decision to move on from Jason Garrett now. I get that this team is drawing dead. They still have an opportunity if they beat the Eagles week 16. But I look at this and say the Cowboys season is already over. I mean, you're not going to make a change right now because you still do have a chance. But whether they fire Jason Garrett today or whether they move on from him in the offseason, I think the result is going to be the same. This 2019 Dallas Cowboys team is going to be known as a team that drastically underachieved.
I think the players like Jason Garrett. I do. I think he's a player's coach, a former player himself. I think they enjoy playing for him. He's pretty player friendly, but I think that might be a part of the problem. I heard Mark Schlereth on Colin Cowherd's show on this network, and he was talking about there's no fear of Jason Garrett. And there is a healthy fear that can be out there. I think Patriots players, I think they fear Bill Belichick. I think there's got to be something. Like, when was the last time you saw Jason Garrett just get after a guy or cut a guy because he didn't perform? And sometimes that's what you have to be able to do. You have to bring a hammer sometimes.
Well, how can Jason Garrett do that?
Well,
Jason Garrett is saying we're going to evaluate the kicker position,
right?
And then Jerry Jones says we're not looking at any
That's why this whole thing is a dumpster fire. And it starts with Jerry, it goes through Jason Garrett, and then it runs through the players.
If it's a dumpster fire, even if you don't think your bucket of water is going to put it out, if it's the only one you got, you throw it. You can't change the owner. The players are the players. There's only one card to play. Play it and see what happens. It's not going to become more of a dumpster fire.
All right, Kenny, stick around. We got more. Coming up, is Pat Mahomes better than Tom Brady?
I'm
Today. That's next on First Things First.
Y'all are outraged.